So we're fighting for these kids now. And this drop-in center we have, we do many things. The kids come in after school, and they arrive at about 3:45. First thing we do is feed them. After that, homework. We have a couple people that work there full-time. The rest of them are volunteers. They do their homework. Then we have a library. I just went out and hustled 12 computers for them. And these are all Apple computers. We got volunteers from the University of, up there, the York University, working with them. We got a social worker now. We got career counselors with them. Everything is around education and social skills. And the most important thing these kids have to understand is you have a choice. Whether you think so or not, you have options. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's where you're going that counts. Many young people that grow up in low esteem or grow up in low income housing, and many kids I'm dealing with don't have a father. And Tupac Shakur said this once. And you know what, I remember that because it's one of the things that stuck. He said, how can a boy learn to be a man without a father to teach him? So sometimes we got to be their fathers. And we got to stomp them. And I know, you know what, I'm not foolish enough to think I'm going to make a difference in the world. But I can make a difference in other kids' lives so they don't end up like I did. That dream took me many years because I grew up in a family, God bless my mother and father, they were good people. But my father and mother didn't emphasize education. We had 11 kids in one house, 2-bedroom house. 5 of us slept in one bed. That's the way we lived. And it was all about survival. So I was ill-prepared for the corporate world. I dropped out of school in grade 5, but you know, I failed grade 3 and grade 4. So if somebody told me, when I was 15 years old, that I would write a book, that would be, this is on its way to being a 4-time bestseller now. It's in every major library. It's doing well in here in the States. It is sold out various times at the major stores, Indigo chapters, and it's doing very well. This book is going to be a complete, full-length movie. Beginning in April, they're going to start shooting in Detroit and then Toronto.
Fantastic.
Here's the point I want to make. If somebody told me when I was 15 years old that I would write a book that would go to #1, there's going to become a movie, I would have thought they were nuts. If somebody told me at 15 years old that I would interview some of the greatest leaders, some of the greatest entertainers, some of the greatest athletes, that I would have my own radio show, and I had my own television show from 1983 till 1987, and again from 1991 to 93, along with my good friend George Chavallo. You know George Chavallo. We had our own show. If somebody would have told me that, I would have never believed them. I've interviewed Nelson Mandela. I just got to finish interviewing Mark Wahlberg for the 3rd time. Russell Peters. I've interviewed Michael Jordan. The list goes on. Muhammad Ali was one of my first interviews. And I know I don't have much longer, so I just want to say this. When I got out of jail in 1966, and I know it was February the 18th, 1966, I got out of Millbrook, which was maximum security. I had no place to live. I lived in the streets for about 2 weeks. But the only thing I promised is when I got out of jail this time, that I would never go back again. And that's the first time I ever kept a promise to myself. I didn't have no direction. I had no game plan. It was so cold out there that I called a guy named Sully Sullivan who owned a gym called Sully's Gym on Washington Avenue. And Sully told me I could live at his gym, but I had to clean everybody's eating their breakfast, so I had to clean up the spit buckets. That's a nasty job. I had to clean up the ring, the urinals, and the toilet bowls. But I had a roof over my head, I had a hot plate, and it was cold out there. And here I was, man, 25 years old, broke, busted, disgusted, and not to be trusted. But I wasn't going back to jail. And in March of that year, my life changed completely. It was about March the 14th. The most famous man in the world came to Toronto. And he trained at my gym. Anybody know who I'm talking about?
Ali.
Muhammad Ali. And I learned so much from Muhammad Ali. He was friendly right from the start. Here's the most famous, popular athlete in the world. He could go anywhere without a passport. Everybody knew him. And he treated me like somebody. I remember the first day with him. He walked up to me, and he's like this. And I remember what he had on, because he had on a pair of sweatpants, red, and a pair of white boxing shoes. And I looked at him, first thing I'm looking at him, his face, not a mark on it. Smoother than a baby's bottom. This guy's a heavyweight champion of the world. And he looked down at me like he loved to play with you. He's trying to give me the eye, and I'm looking back at him. He says, "Hey man," he says, "you bad or something?" And I said, "No, I'm not bad. I'm just bad enough to keep the bad cats off me." He looked at me, I said, "Why, you want some?" "No, don't hit me, man." And he ran and hid behind Angelo Dundee. That's the kind of guy he was. So he comes in the dressing room after we're talking, and he's asking me, we start talking. Then he starts singing. His favorite singer was Sam Cooke, but his favorite song was "Stand By Me." So he's singing, "Hey, when the night," and I'm hitting it. So after that was always, "Spider Jones, hit that for me." And I, "When the night," and we'd be, that's come, we'd be having fun. I told him I wanted to be in radio. And I remember him telling me, "If you want to be in radio, you can be in radio." He said, "Man, you know all that music." And I know music. I know who produced it, who wrote it. I can tell you anything you want to know about music. Right back from Frank Sinatra right up until about 1980, then I get lost. And I do get lost, but up until then, I can talk, especially if it's R&B, if it's country, and if it's pop. I can talk about it because I know it. But people like him changed my life. And I tell people today, you think of Muhammad Ali, we think about how great he was back then. But you know whose two greatest challenges, his three greatest challenges, nobody thought he would beat. When he fought Sonny Liston, he was a 20-to-1 underdog. Nobody thought he would win. And when he fought George Foreman, do you remember that? Nobody gave him a shot. He was too old, he was through. But Ali had the most confidence I ever saw in a person. He didn't listen to people. What he did was watch films and highlights of all these guys. And he would study them and study them. It's called the game plan. And young people need a game plan in life. And that's what we teach them at the center. We have intense sessions. We have roundtable sessions. These kids love it. We talk about making the right choices in life and the wrong choices. Here's where this choice takes you. This is where that choice takes you. So now you understand what will happen. If you take this choice, we'll help you. We're developing through all kinds of different connections. So I love this place. It's a dream of mine, and it's called the Spider's Web. And you can find out more about that if you go to believetoachieve.ca. That is Believe to Achieve. We have a movement, and the movement is to help young people believe in themselves and to find out who they are and their talents, and not just be convinced. You go into most public schools, you go to grade 7 and grade 8, I swear, you ask these kids what they want to be, depending on their culture. If they're black, they want to be a basketball, NBA, or they want to be a rapper. The white kids want to be a hockey player. You know what I mean? It just goes on and on. Or want to be in this and that. Why not be lawyers, doctors, engineers, police officers, teachers, other things? And this is what we push with them in our drop-in center. I can tell you, without these drop-in centers, these kids would just, they would know what to do. Because they have nobody in these places. So that's what we do there, gentlemen, in that drop-in center. And again, it's called the Spider's Web. And outside of that, I'm traveling around. We just got back from LA. I stayed with our good friend, Russell Peters. You know Russell Peters? I was up to his place. He was very hospitable. He showed me around his big mansion. It was on cribs. He's got this big place, 4-car garage. So he says, "Where do you want to sleep tonight?" I said, "Well, show me your rooms." And he showed me all these bedrooms, and one particular room we went into, the bed was this high. And I said, yeah, that's the bed I'm going to sleep in. He said, buddy, you're sleeping with me then. I said, no, I won't. But you know, Russell Peters, 15 years ago, started out for me. When my band, Spider Jones and the Fabulous Web, we played the Police Association, and our opening act was Russell Peters. I couldn't hire him now. So he's doing very well. It's good for Canadians to see our own people doing so well. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to reiterate, our club is called the Spider's Web Drop-In Center. They need one out here too. Things are changing. There are so many young people out here that have no male influence or have no strong female influence. That's what kids need to change it. They need a barometer. They need to know how to, they need to know what they need to do in life. You see, because success doesn't come easy. My father used to have a saying. I'd be bragging about, I'm going to be the champion of the world, Daddy. And I could still throw him, too. He said, I'd be the champion of the world, Daddy. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. Boy, he says, you know, son, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You got to sacrifice. And even in our business, all our businesses, you go that extra mile, you catch the ball. And I found that out the hard way. But this is what we're teaching these young people. I just got back from a jail tour, a prison tour. I went to Millhaven. You know about that, Leon? That Millhaven's a bad place. I went to Kingston. I went to Joyceville. I went to Collins Bay, Coburg. I got to tell you, it's heartbreaking to see the young men doing 15 to 20 years. And the kids I deal with live in these gang-infested areas. We're fighting to keep them away from the gangs. I was seduced into gang life at 12 years old. Flunking grade 3 and grade 4. School had no, I had no ambition for school. I thought I was stupid. You know what I found out? I wasn't stupid. I have a learning disability. I have to read something 3 or 4 times before I can process it. There are a lot of kids like that out here today, but they get left behind. So we're going to make sure they don't. They just have to work a little harder. And I learned that when I went back to school. And I went back, I was talking to this gentleman here. When I was going back to school, when I went back to Seneca College, am I right? You bought pots off me.
Yeah.
I was selling, I would go down on Spadina rather than sell drugs or gangbang. Or I used to collect for loan sharks. I wasn't doing no more. I made up my mind. I made a promise I would never do that again. So I went down to Spadina. I met a couple guys down there who had wholesale business. They gave me stuff on credit. And I'd go out and I would go in all these areas and bang and sell my stuff. In between classes, whatever else I had to do to make a living. And that's what I did. But when I graduated from school, I graduated with high honors. I graduated in communications and journalism. And I won a Board of Governors Award, the Premier's Award, the Alumni of the Award, and now I had 2 years ago, a couple of years back, I won the Edward Armour Award for gangs, guns, and violence. So don't tell me what you can't be. You tell me what you want to be, and we will show you how to get there. So I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions or any comments? My books, it all goes to our organization. It is a good read. A lot of great stories about Marvin Gaye, George Chevallo, Muhammad Ali, illegal fights we used to be in a lot of. That's why I got no teeth there anymore. I got them. But all kinds of interesting stories in there about my first love, and she's still my love, and all that kind of stuff.
Your mind to love, and you're gonna starve your heart.